Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Back With Me It's Tough Show. Today, I am here with Rennel, and we are here to talk about athlete mental health. Can you please share a little bit about your role and how you started working with ODU athletes right now?
Yeah. Before I get started, I got to say thank you, Cami, for having me on today to discuss and talk about not just mental health, but something that I'm passionate about, which is mental health and athletics. As far as how I got into my role, it's kind of unique, the route that was taken. I got into the role initially applying for the director role under our current hiring individual, Dr. Ron Moses. And because I didn't meet some of the credentials for the initial hiring, we then hired ODU, then hired the wonderful and great Dr. Sonia Lund. And then in starting her role, she realized that, it's kind of a task heavy role and it's going to require a lot. So that is when I was contacted. And then, things just kind of just started moving and started going from there.
And so, what first drew you on to focusing on athlete mental health specifically?
Yeah, so being a former collegiate athlete myself, I played at Emory Henry College. I did that for 4 years. And with the double major of sports management and psychology, you see a lot of different things in the sports arena and in the sports world. So seeing a lot of teammates and then even just my individual self with my struggles with anxiety, not necessarily performance athletically, but performance in the classroom. That was one thing that really drove me to try to focus on mental health within athletics. Now, at the time, I did not know that per se that was a thing because I had never heard of it before. The only thing I had ever heard of was a sports psychologist. So I knew that particularly maybe wasn't the route that I wanted to go. But thankfully, I have some great advisors at Emory Henry College, which is now Emory, I believe it's Emory University, or Emory Henry University, excuse me. But I had some great advisors who kind of pointed me in the right direction and helped me out. And then once got to Norfolk State in fall of 2016, where I received my master's, it kind of just opened up some doors, and I learned that you can do a lot of different things. You can have a multitude of different roles, and then kind of in a way, I just made my own thing. I understood social work, that is what my master's is in social work. I could create a path for myself, and athletics was that path.
Okay. Well, going off of that, so how would you say athletes could separate their identity from the success, the wins, or the losses when they are playing and when they are a student?
So just to clarify, you stated how does the athlete separate their identity?
Yes.
So I would say the main thing the athlete just has to understand is that you're a person first. So before you became that athlete of however you identify, you're a child, you're an uncle, you're a cousin, you're a nephew, you're an older sibling. So that's what's most important. And then within that identity, being able to recognize what is your community, what does your group look like, that is supportive of you. And the reason I said that the way that I did, opposed to just saying, well, your family, is because for some athletes, family may not be what they lean on or may not be that most important thing. So whatever your community is and whatever you find to be most important, I think that's one thing as well, as far as that identity goes. And then recognizing that which I'm so glad that we have social media the way that we do, understanding that there are a lot of different ways that an athlete can grow and an athlete can expand beyond their sport.
So do you think, like at least at the college level, that the college system provides enough support for the off-field side of being an athlete as a
I
support
would say
system?
yes.
I know you
I'm
can go
sorry, I'm
ahead.
sorry,
Sorry
but
about that.
no, you good, you're good. But yes, I would say definitely that I'm speaking specifically at Old Dominion University. We definitely
Hmm.
provide a multitude of different things for the athlete to do, such as career building, career counseling, work with athletes on interviewing, also work with athletes on building their resume so that you're not just strictly an athlete. When you're done with us or whenever you decide when that transition process starts for yourself, like you can leave ODU knowing that you received all the skills that is needed. So I feel comfortable and confident in saying that. Now, of course, I think again it depends on the sport and that expectation and pressure that it comes with. The athlete may feel like the sport is all that I have, right? Like I'm brought here to strictly do that sport. But of course, you're a student athlete, and that is the idea and the mindset that we want to keep for our athletes at Old Dominion University.
All right. Well, actually, like I really proud to hear that because like I've been seeing some of the resources, such as I think it's like a psychiatry app I believe that we have now. I think that's there too. That's for students and
Yeah,
also athletes.
yeah. God, you got me thinking. I really cannot believe I just forgot, but it's called Timely Care. I'm sorry. So for our athletes,
Okay.
one of the apps that we do have is called Timely Care. So it's a 24/7 app, and that's more on the mental health side. So if you happen to be on a road game in South Carolina and you're struggling with some anxiety the night before a game, you can utilize Timely Care, which is a service that is paid for by the Sun Belt Conference, but it is offered to each school within the conference. So again,
Okay.
that's one of the multitude of services that are offered.
That's really good to know. So just bouncing off of that, so athletes do just on the scale of just games and the sports that they play, they deal with a lot of like mental toughness and how it's often talked about in sports. So how would you say they can balance that with being open about their mental health?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just kind of speaking from the mental health perspective, is letting the athlete know that we're here to support them, and that they're not doing this alone, right? Because for a lot of these athletes, they may feel like they're alone, or they may feel like their cohort of that sport is all that they can lean on, which I think is absolutely wonderful. But being able to recognize, like, okay, I'm I'm struggling. I'm dealing with something. So be able to openly admit that, and being able to recognize that. One of the things that I will use an example if I'm using football is if I'm struggling with catching the ball and I've been able to catch the ball all throughout high school or junior college, whatever that is, and that provided me the skill to get to where you are now, which is Division I level, in which all athletes aim to be at, and then all of a sudden you get at that level and you forget how to catch, or you're struggling with catching. I think you have to acknowledge that, hey, I'm having some issues. Is it my eyes? Is it my hands? Is it the technique? It's the same thing with, excuse me, the same thing with your mental health. Being able to recognize that, okay, I'm not really sure what it is, or I may not be aware of what mental health is, but I'm having some struggles in this specific area of my life. So I think being able to have that athlete recognize that is really, really important.
So in your work with specifically ODU athletes, have you seen a change in how willing they are to talk about these issues compared to a few years ago?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Athletes are much more open to discuss and talk about mental health. From what has been explained to me and what has been shared, the athletes were the driving cause for mental health, specifically at ODU being something that has started within the athletic department. Now, of course, the NCAA mandated that now going forward that you have some sort of counseling or some sort of therapy services for the athlete. But prior to that, the athletes were 100% pushing this. So from them kind of being that driving force to that before fall of 2022, which is when the program started, up until now, there has been a significant improvement and change in athletes being forthcoming and coming to talk about their mental health, but also to within our program, which is the student athlete sport well-being program. We're very much aware there's still stigma out there, right? There's still stigma out there that we need to do our best to try to break as much as possible. And we feel like that starts at the top, which would be the coaching staffs being open with their athletes that mental health is there.
And so just kind of bouncing off of that, since I was kind of going to my next question, how would you say that even teammates on top of coaches and media would have a role in breaking that stigma?
Yeah. So with with the program, like we try to start every semester off, which we probably did this about a month ago. We try to meet with each program and go over kind of the basic warning signs of mental health and mental health changes and struggles that you may see within a teammate or even yourself. And being able to have that conversation, which we do some role playing within those team meetings about, okay, this is how I could potentially role play, or not role play, but communicate with my teammate to let them know, hey, these are some things that I'm seeing. These are some changes that I've experienced or even witnessed with you. Are you open to going to counseling? Right. Or are you open to us potentially having a meeting with our positions coach or even the head coach to kind of try to identify what is it that's going on? So I definitely think that the athletes have been, if I'm thinking back to a lot of the athletes that I've worked with, a lot of them have been individual referrals. Like a teammate has referred the athlete to counseling, or also additionally, it's come from the athletic training staff, or it's come from the academic advisor. So I would say between the athletes themselves amongst one another, kind of holding each other to a high standard, and then you have the athletic trainers who are extremely highly involved with the athletes, and then their advisor who they see every single day. I would say those three are major factors in those athletes getting that counseling service.
Well, that kind of answered my next question, actually. So I'll just move on to the next section.
Sorry.
Um, no, you're good. You're good. I actually, that was such a good answer. But next we're just going to go into a bit about like motivation versus mental health. So, how can athletes tell the difference between pushing through adversity and then pushing past a healthy limit? So, what's
Yes.
really the difference in that?
So the example I often use, just being a former athlete, I often say that when the athlete is sitting across from me or when we're having that conversation of I'm tired, I truly can understand what they're saying being a former athlete, right? Like I get that when you say I'm tired, that tired can mean if you're having a session with me at 5 o'clock, that means that my tired started at probably 6, right? I got weightlifting at 6 o'clock. After weightlifting, I have mandatory breakfast. After mandatory breakfast, I have weightlifting. I mean, not weightlifting, but we may have meetings and another meeting, and then there's a practice. Then I got two, three classes, and then I have, my counseling session. So understanding that that is normal within your day. And that's kind of you just kind of pushing through the day, right? Now, when it becomes the issue and it becomes more mental health related is when you have started to notice things where you used to feel motivated and you used to feel like, okay, my why is the reason why I'm even doing this. When that starts to change, or when you start to notice small things such as like, okay, like I don't feel motivated at weightlifting anymore. I'm not motivated in my meetings. I'm not motivated or even wanting to eat. I'm struggling with sleeping even before I get to the facility, or as I'm approaching the facility, I'm physically starting to become ill or starting to become sick, or my thoughts are just negative the entire time I'm in this facility. That is when we got to start having a different conversation. So I try to put it in that simplest way. Um, to our athletes so that they can try to understand that, at least from their perspective. And then once they reach the program and reach the counselors that we have, then we can start to dig maybe a little bit deeper.
All right. And so, what role does rest and recovery play, not just for the body, but also for the mind? Also, kind of bouncing off the that question.
Yeah. Rest is everything. I mean, we talk about sleep so much as for, because the schedules are, I mean, with so many sports in the middle of their season, sleep is everything. Being able to get the correct amount of rest. I know that we can try to put a number on it, but that doesn't mean we always hit that number, which that doesn't mean that the athlete is doing the wrong thing. But in regard to just having that rest, having that ability to recover, we talk about how that can lead to things such as injuries down the road, and we are, and as well, Cammy, if you're not able to participate or play,
Mhm.
that has a major impact on your mental health as well. So, often having conversations with athletes, what is your sleep? What is your eating? What does your hygiene look like? Do you take full advantage of your days off when you have a day off? If it is a day off, is it a planned day off, or is it just a day off to not do anything? Do some self-care, get a haircut, get your hair done, get your nails done, those type of things. So those are really, really important conversations. And sometimes you're not able to schedule it or you're not able to plan it. But again, hopeful that within that organization or within that specific program, it's some things that's laid out that can, help our athletes out. And then hopefully if they've been coming to receive counseling, that's something they can fall back on as far as because we emphasize self-care, right? Autonomy, you having autonomy over yourself, and self-care is really, really huge.
Now, for a highly self-driven athlete, how would you say you would help them avoid burnout while keeping their motivation?
Absolutely. The first thing that I would say is when you leave the facility, right? Like allow yourself some time to not worry about that sport anymore. And one of the things that I try to do is we got to create a weekly schedule. Like, what does that look like? Like, there's, of course, within the sports and you're a collegiate athlete, your coaches probably have expectations, which would include watching film, going over your playbook, things like that, which I think is fine. If that coach puts a time frame on it, like from if I'm using football again as an example, if the game ends Saturday and the coach is saying from Sunday till Friday, I need you to look at 10 hours of film. Let's break that down and see where we can get that 10 hours in at. But once you get that 10 hours, if you feel like that is enough, then that's fine. But if you feel like you want to do more because you are a high driven athlete, then make sure that it's manageable. It's not something that's overtaking kind of like your day, right? It's nothing wrong with being obsessed. I think if you're obsessed, that means you're caring, but that can also lead to burnout because it's a 12-week season. So there's a lot of practices, a lot of meetings. So being able to help that athlete create a schedule and have some organization as well to try to decrease as much burnout as possible, and then to maybe add on to what you said, Cami, with your question, understand what burnout looks like. Right. Well, when are you physically and mentally starting to experience burnout?
And now this next question is a little bit more towards injuries and benchings, as we mentioned a bit earlier. So how would you reframe that and see growth moments instead of discouragement?
With the athlete who's experienced an injury or benching?
Yes.
Got you. So I'll talk about the injury part. So when it comes to an athlete who is injured, first thing you gotta just have that conversation is, look, before you start at the sport, you have to recognize injuries, or we say boo-boos are going to happen, right? Like it's just a part of the sport. The moment that you step foot on that court or the moment that you step foot on that field, you're not 100% anymore, right? You're instantly 99%. So saying that you feel 100% is probably not going to happen. Now, as far as an injury goes, which could lead to you missing a significant amount of time, your mindset has to change, right? Like you have to get yourself to a space where I gotta follow the treatment plan of what I'm asked to do. And one of the things with athletes, and I can attest to this as well as somebody who's torn their ACL and had, shoulder injuries, leg injuries. When you give us a time frame and you say, hey, this is going to be 4 to 6 weeks, it's great for us to know, but it can get tricky because if I'm reaching 4 to 6 weeks and I'm not seeing progression or seeing what can lead to me getting back on that field or that court, it gets mentally, it kind of can get in a really sticky place, right? Because you start to question the people who have created this treatment plan for you. So being able to have an athlete know you got to follow that treatment plan, and you're going to experience mental strain, right? This mental strain is going to probably be different than anything that you have experienced because with an injury, it's you versus you. Like you're not preparing for Coastal, you're not preparing for Texas State. It is you versus you. I'm trying to get yourself back as much as possible. And in counseling and in sessions, some of those conversations that I've had is like, what is, if today's Monday, what was your treatment plan for Monday? Did you abide by that? Did you follow that? Did you feel like you maximized that to the best of your ability? Um, and it's a hard conversation. It really truly is. Now on the benching side, um, most athletes, they want to create the space or create the environment within the session that I should be starting, which I respect that. I will say, as someone who's very active, and one of my mottos as a within our program is be seen, is we go to practices. If I can, I try to sit in on meetings, those type of things, not with any intent or any purpose of focusing strictly on my athlete or athletes who are on that team, but just being present, like seeing how are the practices going? How was the meetings handled? Those type of things. So if I'm able to do that, and then you come to me and say, "Hey, they're not playing me," or "Hey, man, they moved me from second team to third team, but I don't understand it." Sometimes I could give some insight, but I don't overstep any boundaries. But if I'm not able to go to your practices or attend any meetings or anything like that, I'm going 100% off face value of what you said, and I'm actively listening, trying to understand where the athlete is coming from. So, benching is one of those things where it gets really, really tricky. It really does get tricky, but just trying to utilize some motivational interviewing, keep the athlete as motivated as possible, to not lose hope, not to lose focus within themselves, and understand, you really got to have some hard conversations. Like, you're here for a reason. Like, you decided to be here at Old Dominion University because we thought you as a prospect could play and support our program. So a lot of motivation, a lot of, hey, we got to stay focused, keep that energy up, keep your vibes as high as possible.
And going off of what we spoke about earlier about social media, so since it's becoming more of a daily routine, how do you see it shaping mental health, both positively and negatively?
Yeah. The positive side is it creates exposure, right?
Mhm.
Like, if I make a good play, trust me, I'm sharing it. Right? Not only are you going to share it on your page, you hoping that somebody else sees it, and you could tag ESPN and all types of sports networks, and hopefully it gets out there as much as possible. I mean, and again, you create exposure for yourself. You can create some net worth for yourself as well. On the negative side is the backlash that comes from that, right? But one of the things that I try to talk to our athletes about is being mindful after a loss or after a play, that you're not really just trying to get to your phone as soon as the game ends or as soon as you get to halftime. Like, leave the phone alone. Like, the phone's not going anywhere, right? So being extremely mindful of that, understanding that those comments, those likes, those direct messages, those friend requests or followers that you have, like, they don't dictate who you are as a person. So I know plenty of people that got 10,000 followers, but they don't have any friends. So that is an example I often use with the young people, especially our athletes, just letting them know, like, that social media is not a real space. It doesn't dictate who you are as a person, but there is a gray area where some people, it does dictate truly who they are, right? You see them online, they are a totally different person opposed to when they could be sitting across from myself or anyone on our program and team, and you're like, that's that is that you? It's kind of like you have to do some questioning. So it does create a positive light for networking and being able to expand your brand. But then on the other hand, it can truly tear you down as an individual.
And so kind of jumping off of what you said about the net worth comment. So when you look at and I as of like today's experience and as of the new changes, do you see it serving more as like a motivator or something that is like a risk becoming a distraction?
Yes, I think that it 100% depends on the athlete. If it's an athlete who is truly motivated, and we've talked, is the discussions and topics that we've expressed before, earlier. If you're an athlete who's focused and you have balance, you have a lot of self-care, respect and responsibility for yourself and then your team, that I think NIL is wonderful. I think that it will just be something else that will sprinkle in more motivation, because then it becomes monetary and it shows, like, okay, I don't know about you, Cammy, but I like when someone pats me on the back and tells me I'm doing good, but also
Hmm.
it makes me feel even more better if it's some money behind it as well, right? So it'll make you work a little bit harder. But then on the other end, as far as you talking about risk, it can get a little tricky, right? Because I know that athletes, some of the athletes that I know, they will say, well, we signed a contract, we can't talk about how much we make. Well, I may not know how much you make, but if I see that Gucci bag, or if I see that Louis, or if I see that brand new watch, and it's kind of like, you know, I know we're not supposed to talk about what we make, but I know I can't afford that, right? So it's like, how much are you actually getting paid? Or it creates this idea of, well, why do you have more deals than I do, right? So it can create kind of a risk, and then also too, just if you're not good financially, it can get ugly really quick, right? I think, at ODU, we try to do a good job with financial responsibility and informing our athletes of understanding taxes and filling out their forms. But when it is that time to turn in all paperwork, that you've done the right things within our organization to stay eligible with the NCAA. So it's definitely, if you're motivated and you're an athlete who kind of has all their ducks in order, NIL can be a beautiful thing, but if you're someone who is, I would say, from the risk end, you're only looking at it for the money, it definitely it's not going to work out for you like you thought it would.
And so I'm going to jump a bit to our next topic, more of like outside resources for people that aren't necessarily at ODU, but just general athletes and student athletes. So for athletes outside of a university setting, what kinds of resources should parents and coaches be advocating for?
Okay. Are we saying at the collegiate or are we speaking at a high school level?
More collegiate.
Or collegiate? Okay. I would say definitely if we're talking about resources, first and foremost, like making sure that like there are correct academic accommodations because I know as a counselor I run into a lot of that where athletes are struggling academically. So I think it would be really important to reassure that the athlete is receiving the correct academic accommodations because if you're not getting the correct help that you need in that classroom, it's going to make it really hard for you on that field. And if you're obviously within the NCAA or within the college, within that specific institution, if your grades drop below a certain GPA, then you're not even eligible to play. And it could be one of those things where it is 100% not the athlete's fault. It's strictly because they have a learning disability or they have a learning disorder. So I would say that is first and foremost. Another thing, as far as a resource go, is pay attention to training, right? How was that training? And that training looks like a multitude of things. That could be strength and conditioning. That could look like what does the nutrition plan look like? Those type of things. And then like what happens if the athlete per se doesn't have the correct amount of nutrition, can they easily be redirected, right? Or if you're not per se getting enough sleep, like we've talked about, are there resources nearby that the athlete can be referred to? And then another thing as well is there a psychiatry or a psychiatrist or a team of psychiatrists that is available, not specifically on the campus, but again, that you can be referred to get the correct treatment that you need because all of these different things check a lot of boxes. And then, of course, I'm going to be biased. Where is mental health, right? Where can my child or where can that athlete receive mental health treatment at on campus? Whether that's specifically with a counselor, is that somebody off campus that the university has as a third party, or is that someone that the team just has easy access to?
But yeah, that really did cover a lot for me. So, I do like the fact that you mentioned like the nutritionist and other things that like not every school has those resources. So it's really good that you pointed that out.
And I would
Now
say
I'm just
also, I would also add on too, like if the school is going to be offering NIL or if it's something
mhm,
where NIL is an option, like making sure that the compliance department is the compliance department in compliance with the NCAA, as far as the deals that you're receiving and all of those different
mhm.
things, because it can get really, really tricky.
And now this is again more towards the media end. So as someone like myself who shares athlete stories through media, what do you think uh what the media's role would be in supporting athlete mental health and like how could it either help or harm that balance?
Yeah. So I have to say thank you for what you do as far as sharing those stories and being open and brave enough to ask the athletes because in the athlete or athletic world, I will say as a former athlete, we're very shut off. It's kind of you're at certain spaces or certain schools, you're told you don't talk to anybody, right? Like you talk to whoever the media is at our school, and like we need to know what the person's going to be asking you and what they're going to be saying. So I definitely appreciate you for having those conversations. But I think the media can have a major impact on mental health and what that looks like. I'm trying to just simply break the stigma, right? That mental health within athletics, it is real. There was a study as of last year that 1 in 3 athletes experience suicidal ideations, right? So I don't know what that stat is for 2025, but I know that as of last year, 1 in 3 athletes experience suicidal ideation. So that's 33%. So I don't, for me, I don't know anything else that could get more serious than that. But being able to have those discussions, break the stigma, let it be known that if you are struggling, please say something. Right? Let someone know that something is going on. And if that person who you just talked to or who you shared that information to can't help you, that's completely fine. Work together and figure out who that person is that can help you. And another thing as well is like in your space, Cami, as far as the media goes, like encouraging athletes to speak up, like I just stated, right? And that could be either through your platform or that could be through other platforms. And I mean, we've seen so many different things as far as like player tributes. Kevin Love's is probably one of my favorites, and I'm not just saying it because it's mental health, but for him to talk about anxiety that much in depth, what that panic attack felt like, all of those different things, it it proves again that mental health is a real thing within athletics because the pressure again, the pressure is unlike anything else, on that collegiate campus to perform. And that's what it is. It is a performance based business because the NCAA and performing collegiately on Saturdays or whenever your day is to play, it is a business.
And so now I'm just going to close this off since we only have a few minutes left. So what would be one piece of advice that you wish every athlete carried with them before stepping onto the field or court or wherever they're playing?
It's okay to make mistakes. It is okay to make mistakes. Play free, be yourself, be authentic, and also understand you're representing, of course, the institution, which is the college, the university, but you're representing your family. If you have your name on the back of your jersey, I think it's a beautiful thing. But if you don't, your family knows who you are, right? Your family knows who you are. The mama, grandma, uncle, cousins, everybody's watching from your hometown or wherever you're from. They know who you are and understand that one, it's okay to make mistakes, and then two, you are a powerful representative of your hometown, your school, your institution, or whatever.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me for today's episode. Again, it was very, uh, I'm very glad that you had the time to join me for this episode today and to be able to talk about this topic as it's been something I've been wanting to talk about for quite a while. So again, thank you, Rennel. And yeah, I'll just close it out here. If you want to say anything
Thank you.
else,
No,
you're
absolutely
welcome.
no. Thank you, thank you. If any athlete is experiencing any issues or concerns with suicidal type thoughts, please utilize 988. That is a nationwide 24/7 resource that can be utilized to save someone's life. So if one athlete hears this and it makes that difference in their life, that means Cammy that you're doing an amazing job with this media platform.
All right. Well, I'll end it here. Thank you.